In the world of professional wrestling, there are few names that stand the test of time, names that evoke powerful emotions, unforgettable moments, and legacies that transcend the ring. Beth Phoenix, known as the Glamazon, is one of those names. From her debut to her rise as a champion, Phoenix carved a path that defied expectations, shattered stereotypes, and redefined what it meant to be a female wrestler in a world dominated by men. But her story goes beyond the wrestling mat. It's a tale of perseverance, ambition, and the pursuit of excellence in a cutthroat industry. This is the story of Beth Phoenix, her trials, triumphs, and everything in between. It's a story that delves into the emotional heart of a woman who fought not just for championships, but for her place in a world that wasn't always ready to accept her. The dark side of the ring reveals not just the battles that raged in front of thousands of fans, but the personal struggles and sacrifices that accompanied her rise to stardom. This is the real story of Beth Phoenix. Beth Phoenix was born in Elmira, New York, in 1980, a small town with a modest charm that seemed worlds away from the glitz and glamour of the professional wrestling world. From a young age, it was clear that Phoenix wasn't like the other girls. While most children were playing with dolls or enjoying typical childhood games, Beth found herself drawn to a different kind of entertainment: wrestling. Her earliest memories were filled with watching wrestling matches on television with her father, who was a lifelong fan of the sport. The larger-than-life characters, the action-packed storylines, and the athleticism captivated her. But it was something deeper that resonated with her, an unspoken desire to be more than just a fan, to be a part of the spectacle herself. Her parents, particularly her father, were incredibly supportive of her dreams. Though wrestling was often seen as a male-dominated world, Beth's father encouraged her to pursue whatever passion she had, even when others questioned the idea of a girl wanting to step into the ring. Growing up in a family with strong values, she was taught the importance of hard work, perseverance, and never giving up, no matter the challenges. As a teenager, Phoenix became known for her competitive spirit and athletic ability, excelling in multiple sports, including basketball and track. But it was the wrestling ring where she truly found her calling. Beth's high school years were crucial in shaping the person she would become. Her coaches saw something special in her, an intensity and drive that was rare. Even for the most seasoned athletes, they pushed her to train harder, not only physically but mentally, preparing her for the tough journey that lay ahead. It wasn't just about wrestling for Beth. It was about breaking barriers. She dreamed of being a trailblazer, showing the world that women could be just as fierce and capable as their male counterparts in the ring. But the path to the WWE wasn't going to be an easy one, despite her talents. Beth faced resistance and skepticism from some who didn't believe a woman could ever truly make it in the brutal world of professional wrestling. Yet, her determination never wavered. It was during these formative years, filled with both triumphs and setbacks, that Phoenix began to understand the true meaning of resilience. With the support of her family and a relentless drive to succeed, she took her first steps toward the wrestling ring, unaware of the enormous impact she would one day have on the sport. This was only the beginning of a journey that would require her to confront not only the expectations of others, but also her own internal battles. Beth Phoenix's journey into the world of professional wrestling wasn't a story of immediate glory. It was a story of hard work, rejection, and relentless determination. After graduating from high school, she decided to take the bold step of pursuing a career in wrestling. Phoenix knew that if she wanted to succeed, she would have to enter a world that was almost entirely unfamiliar to her. While many young wrestlers joined schools with established reputations and mentors to guide them, Beth decided to carve her own path. She enrolled in wrestling training in Buffalo, New York, where she began to develop the skills and techniques that would eventually define her career. Her early days in training were grueling. Wrestling, especially for women at the time, was far from glamorous. The physical demands of the sport were overwhelming, and Phoenix struggled with the sheer endurance required to keep up with her male counterparts. Every day, she pushed her body to the limit, mastering the technical aspects of wrestling while dealing with the harsh realities of a sport that wasn't always welcoming to women. Despite the challenges, she refused to back down. Her determination was evident, whether she was mastering the basics or learning the intricate moves that would later define her in the ring. She kept moving forward. However, it wasn't just physical toughness that Beth needed to succeed, it was mental toughness. She quickly learned that the wrestling industry was tough, both in and out of the ring. For every door that opened, another slammed shut. The reality was clear. Being a woman in a male-dominated industry meant facing rejection at every turn. Phoenix auditioned for several wrestling promotions, including WWE, but was initially overlooked. Every failure, however, only fueled her resolve. She began to realize that this wasn't just about wrestling. It was about proving herself in a world that didn't believe women could succeed in this arena. But with each setback came valuable lessons. Phoenix developed a reputation for her work ethic and professionalism, gaining the respect of those who trained with her. In her early years, she worked for smaller promotions, honing her craft and learning the art of storytelling through wrestling. She was a natural in the ring, quickly becoming known for her athleticism, powerful moves, and willingness to sacrifice everything to make her mark. It wasn't long before her persistence caught the attention of WWE scouts. In 2004, after years of hard work and rejection, Beth Phoenix was given the chance of a lifetime. She was offered a developmental contract with WWE. This was a breakthrough she had been working toward her entire life. It was a turning point that would lead her to a new chapter in her career, one that would be filled with more challenges, triumphs, and unforgettable moments than she could ever imagine. Beth Phoenix's debut in WWE was not just the beginning of a career. It marked the start of a revolution in women's wrestling. Her introduction was met with a mixture of skepticism and excitement. At the time, the wrestling world was dominated by the likes of Trish Stratus, Lita, and Victoria, women who had already established themselves as icons in the industry. But Beth was different. She wasn't here to be just another diva. She was here to prove that women could not only compete with men, but could redefine what it meant to be a female wrestler in WWE. Her first appearance in WWE was in 2006, where she made her mark as a part of the Raw brand. Phoenix's physique, combined with her athletic ability, immediately set her apart. Unlike many of her predecessors, who were often portrayed more for their looks than their skills, Beth was an imposing figure, a powerhouse in the ring. Her physical presence was impossible to ignore, but her greatest strength wasn't just her muscle. It was her technical prowess. Phoenix's background in amateur wrestling and her relentless training gave her an edge over the competition. She wasn't just a wrestler. She was a fighter. In her early months with WWE, Phoenix was given the opportunity to showcase her talent in various storylines. Initially, she wasn't thrust into the main event spotlight, but it was clear from her very first matches that she had the potential to be much more than just a supporting player. The crowds began to take notice. Phoenix's matches were fierce, technical, and intense, earning her the admiration of fans who were hungry for a new kind of female wrestler, someone who could throw down with the best of them. And then came her defining moment. In 2007, Beth Phoenix made her first major splash in WWE when she won the WWE Women's Championship. The title victory wasn't just a personal achievement. It was a statement. Phoenix had not only climbed to the top of a division that had long been overlooked, but she had done so with grit, determination, and raw talent. She was a champion, and she wasn't going to let anyone forget it. Over the next few years, Phoenix would become one of the most dominant forces in the women's division. Her matches were not just about showcasing athleticism. They were about storytelling, emotion, and establishing herself as a true champion. Fans were captivated by her fierce intensity and her no-nonsense attitude. But what truly set her apart was her ability to connect with the audience on a deeper level. Unlike many wrestlers who played larger-than-life characters, Beth Phoenix's persona was grounded in reality. She was relatable, an athlete with a fierce passion for her craft, driven by the desire to prove herself in an industry that had always been skeptical of women's abilities. Her rivalry with other top WWE stars, such as Mickie James and Melina, became legendary. These feuds weren't just about the title. They were about power, respect, and the desire to prove who was the best. Phoenix's matches became must-see events, with each one telling a story of strength, perseverance, and determination. As her fame grew, so did the attention on women's wrestling as a whole. Phoenix was not just a champion. She was a catalyst for change, bringing a level of legitimacy to the division that had been lacking for years. By 2008, Beth Phoenix had firmly established herself as one of the most successful and respected wrestlers in WWE. She was no longer just a rookie fighting for respect. She was a seasoned veteran, a force to be reckoned with in the ring. Fans flocked to see her matches, eager to witness the raw power and precision she brought to each fight. Her status as a top-tier wrestler was cemented, and her journey to the top of WWE was just beginning. Despite the monumental success that Beth Phoenix had already achieved in WWE, her journey was far from a smooth one. As with any path to greatness, there were obstacles, both in her professional life and personal life, that threatened to derail everything she had worked for. The struggles she faced were as intense as the battles she fought in the ring. And it was these challenges that shaped her character and solidified her legacy. One of the most significant challenges Beth faced early in her WWE career was dealing with the misconceptions about women in wrestling. Despite her undeniable talent and her groundbreaking work in the ring, there were still those who doubted her abilities because of her gender. Women in wrestling were often expected to perform in more traditional diva roles, with less focus on athleticism and more emphasis on beauty and pageantry. Beth was determined to break free from that mold, but doing so meant constantly battling the expectations placed on her by both the company and the fans. There were moments when Beth's resolve was tested. The constant pressure to prove herself in a male-dominated industry left her feeling isolated at times. She wasn't just fighting her opponents in the ring. She was fighting for recognition, fighting to be taken seriously as a competitor. There were also instances of backstage politics that affected her career. While some wrestlers received opportunities based on popularity or connections, Beth's career progression was often tied to her ability to push through these barriers and assert herself. The competition was fierce, and there were times when it seemed like her hard work might not be enough to overcome the obstacles in her path. On top of the professional struggles, Beth faced personal challenges that impacted her ability to thrive in the public eye. Wrestling required a certain level of sacrifice, and Beth often found herself torn between her career and her personal life. The demanding schedule left little time for relaxation, let alone relationships, and at times, she found herself battling loneliness. It wasn't just a physical toll of traveling from city to city or the constant media attention. It was the emotional toll of putting her personal life on hold for the sake of her career. Like many other wrestlers, she sacrificed time with family and friends to pursue her passion, and there were moments when she questioned if it was all worth it. As her fame grew, so did the expectations placed on her. The pressure to remain at the top of her game was immense, and it began to take a toll on her body. Wrestling is a physically demanding sport, and the constant wear and tear of training and performing took a greater toll than Beth could have anticipated. Injuries became a frequent part of her life, forcing her to take time off and reevaluate her approach to her career. There were points where her body seemed to betray her, and she faced setbacks that left her questioning whether she could continue at the highest level. In addition to physical pain, Beth had to cope with the emotional roller coaster of the wrestling business. She was often placed in situations where she felt her worth was questioned. Despite her accomplishments, the industry, particularly in the mid-2000s, was still evolving in its treatment of female wrestlers. And though Beth had achieved incredible success, she was often overlooked or relegated to secondary storylines while other stars took center stage. She struggled with the balance between wanting to remain true to her own identity as a wrestler and the need to conform to the demands of the business. Each decision she made, from choosing her rivals to selecting her storylines, carried with it the weight of those struggles. One of the most difficult challenges that Beth Phoenix faced, however, came from within. As a woman in an industry where success was often determined by external validation, she sometimes wrestled with her own sense of self-worth. Despite being a champion, despite her achievements, she would occasionally doubt herself. Was she truly seen as an equal, or was she simply a token representation of what a female wrestler should be? These doubts were compounded by the criticism that female wrestlers often received in the media, sometimes focusing more on their looks or relationships than their in-ring abilities. Beth had to fight not only to be seen as a competitor, but also to be recognized for her skill, dedication, and passion for wrestling. It wasn't just the external struggles that took a toll on her. It was the internal conflict as well. But through it all, Beth refused to quit. She kept pushing forward, determined to prove that women in wrestling deserved to be recognized for their abilities, their strength, and their hard work. The emotional highs and lows became part of her journey, and each setback only made her stronger. Beth Phoenix's peak moments in WWE were more than just career highlights. They were milestones that reshaped the landscape of women's wrestling and solidified her legacy as one of the greatest of all time. Her journey from being a determined rookie to becoming a trailblazer for future generations of female wrestlers was marked by a series of unforgettable moments, each of which showcased her incredible talent, resilience, and ability to defy expectations. One of the defining moments in Beth Phoenix's career came in 2007 when she won the WWE Women's Championship for the first time. This victory wasn't just a personal achievement for Beth. It was a landmark event for women's wrestling. Phoenix was not only the champion, but she also proved that women could headline events, dominate in the ring, and be seen as equals to their male counterparts. When she defeated Mickie James to claim the title, it was more than just a match. It was a symbolic moment that represented the breaking of barriers. For Beth, the title was a testament to the years of hard work, sacrifice, and perseverance that had brought her to that point. It wasn't just a win in a wrestling match. It was a victory for women in the sport who had fought for recognition and respect. Over the next few years, Phoenix continued to redefine what it meant to be a female wrestler in WWE. Her reign as women's champion was marked by some of the most dominant performances in the history of the division. She successfully defended her title against a host of talented competitors, including the likes of Melina, Jillian Hall, and Layla. But what set Beth apart was her in-ring style, an aggressive, no-holds-barred approach that combined strength, technical skill, and a ruthless edge. Phoenix wasn't content with simply being a diva. She sought to elevate the women's division and bring a level of intensity and credibility that had been missing for so long. Her battles with rivals like Mickie James and Natalya were not just about titles. They were about proving who was the best. These feuds were filled with emotional intensity and fierce competition, and each match was a testament to the incredible chemistry and respect between the two wrestlers. Phoenix's rivalry with Mickie James, in particular, stood out as one of the most compelling storylines of her career. Their matches were not just physical confrontations. They were stories of rivalry, respect, and competition at its highest level. Phoenix's ability to make every match feel personal and meaningful was one of her greatest strengths, and it allowed her to connect with fans on a deeper level. As her career progressed, Beth Phoenix became a cornerstone of WWE's women's division, taking on roles that allowed her to showcase her versatility. She was not only a champion, but also a leader in the locker room, helping to mentor younger talent and advocate for better treatment of women wrestlers. Her influence extended beyond the ring. As she worked to change the narrative about women in wrestling, she didn't just want to be remembered as a wrestler who won titles. She wanted to be remembered as a woman who made a difference in the industry. She wanted to leave a legacy that would inspire future generations of female wrestlers to chase their dreams and fight for their place in a sport that had too long been dominated by men. One of the most memorable moments in Beth Phoenix's career came at the 2010 Royal Rumble, when she became the first woman in history to compete in the men's Royal Rumble match. The moment was groundbreaking, and it showed the world that Beth Phoenix wasn't just a female wrestler. She was a wrestler. Period. Her inclusion in the Rumble match symbolized the changing attitudes toward women in WWE, and it paved the way for other women to follow in her footsteps. The Royal Rumble match itself was a spectacle, but for Beth, it was more than just an opportunity to prove herself. It was a statement that women had a rightful place in the biggest events of WWE. It was a turning point in the evolution of women's wrestling, and Beth was at the forefront of that movement. Phoenix's legacy wasn't just defined by her championships or her iconic matches. It was defined by the way she changed the perception of what it meant to be a female wrestler. She showed that women could be strong, athletic, and just as dominant in the ring as their male counterparts. Through her passion, drive, and unyielding determination, Beth Phoenix helped to pave the way for the women who followed in her footsteps. Names like Sasha Banks, Charlotte Flair, and Becky Lynch may have been the stars of the women's revolution in WWE, but it was Beth Phoenix who helped lay the groundwork for that revolution to take place. Beth's impact on WWE went beyond the wrestling ring. She became a symbol of empowerment for women, both inside and outside of the WWE universe. Her dedication to her craft, her work ethic, and her resilience in the face of adversity inspired countless fans around the world. She proved that with the right mindset, anyone could achieve their dreams, no matter the odds stacked against them. And perhaps most importantly, she showed the world that being a woman in wrestling didn't mean having to conform to outdated stereotypes. It meant embracing one's true strength, pushing boundaries, and never backing down. As she continued to make history, Phoenix's legacy became undeniable. Her influence on the wrestling world was immense, and her role in shaping the future of women's wrestling would forever be remembered. Her greatest achievement was not just winning championships, but ensuring that women would always have a place in the ring, fighting side by side with the men and proving that their stories mattered just as much. Beth Phoenix had become a living legend in the world of professional wrestling, a legacy that would endure for years to come. By the time Beth Phoenix reached the peak of her career, she had achieved more than most could ever dream. However, the inevitable challenges that come with longevity in professional wrestling began to emerge. As with all athletes, age, wear and tear, and the relentless grind of the industry began to take their toll. While Phoenix had always been known for her strength and resilience, these final years of her career were defined by both the physical and mental tolls of a life spent in the ring. The demands of professional wrestling had always been grueling, but as Beth entered her 30s, the impact on her body became impossible to ignore. Wrestling is a sport that often demands everything from its athletes, pushing them to their physical and emotional limits. For Phoenix, the injuries began to mount. There were countless hours of training, countless hours of travel, and dozens of hard-hitting matches, each one leaving scars on her body. Torn muscles, sprains, and strains became part of her daily reality. And while she had always fought through pain, the physical toll of her body was undeniable. In addition to the physical struggles, there were also emotional challenges that Phoenix faced. As her career continued, the wrestling industry itself was undergoing significant changes. WWE was evolving, and with the rise of a new generation of superstars, some began to wonder if there was still a place for Phoenix in the company. The once prominent focus on women's wrestling began to wane, and the Divas division was no longer the centerpiece of WWE's programming. Beth found herself in an uncertain position, questioning what her role would be in this new era of WWE. Yet, despite the mounting challenges, Phoenix refused to back down. She had always prided herself on being a competitor who faced adversity head-on, and this period of her career was no different. While WWE's landscape shifted, Phoenix still had much to offer. She worked tirelessly to stay in top shape, constantly training and rethinking her approach to wrestling. There were times when she doubted whether she could still compete at the level that had once made her a dominant force in the ring. But each time she faced a setback, she came back stronger, determined to prove that she wasn't finished yet. Her final years in WWE were marked by several defining moments. As her physical challenges grew, she transitioned into a more experienced, veteran role, becoming a mentor for younger wrestlers. It was a transition that allowed her to remain connected to the sport she loved. Even if her time in the ring was limited, Phoenix shared her vast knowledge of the business with the next generation, imparting wisdom on the art of storytelling, the psychology of wrestling, and the importance of resilience. She became a figure who was deeply respected for her work ethic, her character, and the way she had fought for the women's division to be taken seriously. But it was also during these years that Beth started to reflect on the future. What came next after a career defined by physicality and performance? The idea of retirement loomed. But it wasn't an easy decision to make. Wrestling had been her life for so long that imagining a life without it felt impossible. But the physical toll of years of performing at the highest level began to weigh heavily on her. Injuries that once seemed manageable now felt like constant reminders of the wear and tear her body had endured. During this time, Phoenix also began to wrestle with the emotional aspect of her career. She had spent much of her life focused solely on her success in the ring. But as she grew older, she started to think about the future beyond wrestling. She had accomplished everything she had set out to do. She had broken down barriers, won championships, and helped change the landscape of women's wrestling. But as she faced the reality of a slowing career, she had to come to terms with the idea that it was time to step away. Beth's reflections were filled with a mixture of pride, nostalgia, and sadness. Her career had been one of triumphs and challenges, of moments of glory and intense struggles. But she was at peace with her journey. Looking back, she saw the legacy she had built, one that was not just about the titles and accolades, but about paving the way for women in wrestling to be taken seriously as athletes, as competitors, and as stars. It was this legacy that made her realize that retirement wasn't the end. It was the next chapter. She had given everything to wrestling, and now it was time for her to step into a new phase of her life, one that would allow her to focus on her health, her family, and her future. Beth Phoenix's final moments in WWE were emotional, filled with both closure and reflection on a career that had shaped her identity and defined her legacy. After years of dedication and sacrifice, the time had come for her to say goodbye to the sport that had been her life. Her departure from the ring wasn't sudden, but it was the culmination of years of physical and emotional challenges. each one leading her toward the decision that it was time to move on. Beth's farewell wasn't just about a single moment or event. It was a gradual process that unfolded over the course of several months. As she continued to wrestle, she began to make it clear that her time in the ring was coming to an end. The final matches, while still fiercely competitive, carried with them a sense of finality, as though Phoenix knew deep down that the chapter was closing. These matches were not just about winning or losing. They were about honoring everything she had accomplished and leaving it all in the ring. The farewell itself was an emotional event for both Beth and the fans who had followed her career from the very beginning. When the news broke that she would be stepping away from the ring, it was met with a mixture of sadness and understanding. Fans knew that they were witnessing the end of an era. Beth Phoenix, the woman who had redefined the role of women in wrestling, was leaving the sport. Her final match was a fitting tribute to her legacy. The arena was filled with cheers and chants as she made her way to the ring one last time. The fans, who had watched her rise from a young rookie to one of the most dominant forces in the history of WWE, showed their appreciation for everything she had given to the sport. As she stepped into the ring for the last time, Beth Phoenix's emotions were palpable. She had spent years dedicating her body and soul to professional wrestling. And now, as she stood in front of the crowd, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. She thought about the early days of her career, the sacrifices, the setbacks, and the challenges she had faced. She thought about the fans who had supported her throughout the years and the fellow wrestlers who had become her family in the locker room. There was no bitterness or regret, only gratitude for the opportunity to have lived her dream. Her final match wasn't just a goodbye to the fans. It was a tribute to everything she had fought for. Beth Phoenix had spent her career fighting for the recognition and respect of women in wrestling. And as she made her final exit from the ring, she knew that she had succeeded. She had carved out a place for women in the WWE landscape, proving that women could be just as dominant, just as athletic, and just as impactful as their male counterparts. In many ways, her departure symbolized the culmination of the work she had started when she first walked through the WWE doors. The world had changed, and women's wrestling was no longer an afterthought. Phoenix had been a driving force behind that change, and her legacy would forever be a part of the fabric of the industry. In her farewell speech, Beth Phoenix spoke to the fans, her voice filled with emotion. She thanked them for their support, for believing in her, and for being part of her journey. She acknowledged the sacrifices she had made, but she also spoke of the joy and fulfillment that wrestling had brought her. It was a moment of emotional release, not just for Beth, but for everyone who had been a part of her journey. As the crowd cheered, it was clear that Beth had left her mark on the wrestling world. She wasn't just saying goodbye to a career, she was passing the torch to the next generation, a generation that would continue the work she had started. As Beth Phoenix made her way up the ramp for the final time, the fans stood and cheered, honoring her legacy and the impact she had made on the sport. It was a farewell filled with pride and love, a fitting tribute to a woman who had done it all. Phoenix's departure from the ring marked the end of an era, but it also signified the beginning of a new chapter for both her and the wrestling world. As she stepped into the future, her legacy would continue to inspire the next generation of female wrestlers, who would follow in her footsteps and continue the work she had started. Beth Phoenix's final moments in WWE were not just about the end of a career. They were about the lasting impact she had made on the industry and the legacy she left behind. It was a moment of reflection, pride, and gratitude, as Beth closed one chapter of her life and prepared to embrace the next. Beth Phoenix's career in WWE stands as a testament to the power of determination, resilience, and passion. Looking back on her journey, from a young girl watching wrestling with her father to becoming one of the most influential and respected figures in the sport, it's clear that she was more than just a wrestler. She was a pioneer, a trailblazer who not only redefined what it meant to be a female wrestler in a male-dominated industry, but also forever changed the landscape of women's wrestling. Her legacy goes beyond the titles and accolades she accumulated over her career. Yes, she won championships, earned respect, and became one of the most formidable forces in the ring. But her true legacy lies in the way she transformed the perceptions of women in professional wrestling. When she first entered WWE, female wrestlers were often relegated to supporting roles, mere eye candy or afterthoughts in the larger picture. But Beth Phoenix changed all that. She showed the world that women could be just as strong, skilled, and captivating as their male counterparts. She proved that women could carry the same weight as any wrestler in the company, deserving of the same level of respect and attention. Phoenix's contributions to the evolution of women's wrestling are immense. The Divas division, which had long been seen as secondary, began to take on more significance with the rise of superstars like Beth. Her dominance in the ring, her charisma, and her unwavering commitment to the sport helped shift the culture within WWE. She was not just a champion in the physical sense. She was a champion for change, advocating for better treatment, greater opportunities, and a platform for future generations of female wrestlers. Her time in WWE opened doors for women like Sasha Banks, Charlotte Flair, and Becky Lynch, who would go on to lead the women's revolution in WWE. A movement that would bring women's wrestling into the mainstream and elevate it to new heights. But beyond the industry's evolution, Beth Phoenix's legacy is deeply personal. She is remembered not only as an incredibly talented athlete, but also as a role model for young girls watching her rise to the top of WWE. She was proof that anything was possible if you were willing to fight for it. Her journey, marked by setbacks, struggles, and personal sacrifices, was relatable and inspiring. She showed that success wasn't always immediate. It was earned through hard work, dedication, and the refusal to give up. Even when the odds were stacked against you, even after her departure from the ring, Beth's influence has continued to resonate. She transitioned into other roles within WWE, including commentary, where she offered her insight and perspective as a former competitor. This was just another example of her ability to adapt and contribute to the company in new ways. Whether she was behind the microphone or in front of the camera, she continued to support and elevate the world of professional wrestling, further solidifying her place as one of its all-time greats. Her legacy extends beyond WWE, touching the lives of fans and fellow wrestlers alike. Many of her peers have spoken about the respect they have for her, citing her work ethic, her professionalism, and her dedication to making women's wrestling better. Beth Phoenix is a name that will live on in the annals of wrestling history, not just because of what she achieved in the ring, but because of the changes she sparked and the doors she opened for others to follow. In the end, Beth Phoenix's career was about more than just wrestling. It was about breaking barriers, defying expectations, and showing the world what women were capable of. Her legacy is one of empowerment, inspiration, and relentless perseverance. As we look back on her incredible career, we see a story not just of victories and championships, but of a woman who changed the course of history, a woman who helped redefine what it means to be a female wrestler and, in doing so, left an indelible mark on the world of professional wrestling. Beth Phoenix's story is a story of triumph, a story of transformation, and a story that will continue to inspire for generations to come. She may have stepped away from the ring, but her legacy will live on in the hearts of fans and the minds of wrestlers, both male and female, who will continue to strive for greatness in her name.